Top 5 CFP excuses. This is what the committee has done. Let's go through some history here, guys. Craig loves these.
What, the top 5?
No, the CFP excuses.
Yeah, okay.
Like a lot of this was when I was going through this, I was hearing Craig's voice in my head talking about it.
Okay.
Number 5, travel time. That was one of the ones that they gave for assessing people. These guys were on planes more. So, and that, like, everybody flies differently, you know? Like, I mean, so, you know, I know people have huge anxiety of flying, and then, you know, it's about, what, an 85-minute flight from Dallas to Kansas City?
Yeah.
Something like that.
That long, yeah.
Yeah. It's an 8-hour flight from Dallas to Honolulu, and I've been on both those flights multiple times, and I've seen people have the same anxiety on the same flight, and that 85-minute flight feels like an 8-hour flight to them. So again, I don't know, but this was one of the ones, and this was like the deep, like a deep
body
cut.
Clocks.
Yeah, body clocks.
Talking about that was the big buzz phrase, was body clocks, and the travel, like different time zones, and that load of BS from Jeff Long. God, that was the worst there at the beginning of the playoff. They were game control.
Whoa.
Oh, I know. I'm just saying, though, but like, these were all these things that they were rattling off as, again, reasons to just justify what they had already decided just because they wanted to. And then, oh, well, no, what do we have to explain why we did this? Oh, travel time and body clocks and all this made-up BS. I will say, though, in terms of travel, Texas got the best draw out of everybody in the college football playoff and a huge advantage. Washington has to go all the way to New Orleans. Texas just has to hop on over from Austin. It's not a nothing flight, but it's nothing compared to Washington having to go there. And then the national title games in Houston?
Yeah.
So that sets up pretty well for UT as far as the travel time thing goes. But, yeah, that's a weird argument amongst many other weird ones.
Number 4. Game control.
Yeah.
Game control was, okay, how do you determine who is better when their records are exactly the same? Well, not only how much you blew somebody out, like, because sometimes you can blow somebody out and those, 2 touchdowns that, turn into 4 touchdowns. They were 2 freak plays at the end of the game. So it was really a closer game until the last 5 minutes when there was a fumble and a pick 6 and the other team scored a couple touchdowns and put it away. No, it was really, throughout the first quarter and the third quarter, this game, like, it was a completely arbitrary and non-measurable metric of game control.
What was Alabama's game control for the Auburn game? That just doesn't get brought up as
31 seconds.
Yeah.
They controlled the last 32 yards of that game.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if Hugh Freeze and Ron Roberts knew how to run a defense there in those final seconds, then that renders everything that we're talking about today moot or entirely different, right? I mean, that one outcome, that kept FSU out of the playoff.
Yeah.
That one outcome and changed everything. But, yeah, this was all the game control, the body clocks. That was all a Jeff Long thing right at the very beginning, and it was so bogus and it was so subjective. And that circles back to what I was talking about earlier as far as just this is the dumbest way to decide a champion, the dumbest in all of American sports, the worst postseason for determining a champion. And I guess the word I was looking for is it's just so subjective. And there's no way to line everybody up in a March Madness-style tournament, but why are we allowing subjectivity to rule over on-field results most of the time? You know what I mean? I just find that to be so silly and subjective. And the people who were the ones making those decisions, that's just But game control, that was a Jeff Long special, and that was ridiculous.
Number 3. And this one was somewhat valid, but also used because they needed an excuse. The 13th data point. This is what kept TCU and Baylor out of the 2014 playoff because the Big 12 did not have a title game. All the other Power 5 conferences did, and Bob Bowlesby gift-wrapped the excuse to the committee so that they didn't have to take any Tums that day. But when it was described to us as the fan and the viewer, it wasn't, hey, their commissioner refuses to name a champion and is trying to leave it nebulous so that maybe we take two of his teams and leave somebody else out, we're going to call it a 13th data point that they didn't play the last week and everybody else did. So now those teams are in. Now, where the 13th data point becomes bogus is that sometimes teams don't get the 13th data point because they lost one game to a really good team on their side of the conference, and then they still make the playoff. I see that and raise you the SEC and TCU last year. Georgia and TCU both, Georgia did, but TCU did not win the conference. They were out. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, just a thing to use when you needed to use it. I mean, that's all that was. That only mattered when they needed something to differentiate and get Baylor and TCU out of the conversation. So all of a sudden, 13th data point mattered, just like when they needed to excuse why this team was over that team. All of a sudden, body clocks mattered. Again, it's all subjective, and it's all just whatever they need to get through the television show that's a sham and just, put some type of reasoning out there for their entirely subjective decision-making.
All right, we'll have the Heisman finalist in a minute, but we go down, continue with the top five.
Yeah,
Paul?
Garrett, I'm sending you a picture that you can throw up there here in a second. Number 2, best over most deserving. Look, this was the argument, and Bill Hancock threw this out. It's usually been the most deserving, and no sport really guarantees that the best teams are going to be in it. The Patriots were 18-0 and played a very scrappy Giants team that had to win a Super Bowl like this with Eli Manning almost getting sacked. Like, that's how they had to do it. Were the Giants the best team? No. If they played that game 10 times, the Giants probably lose 9 of them. The Patriots are that good. But that's why you do it and you earn your way in. The Giants, the Giants were better than the Cowboys that year for the long short, but they beat them in the playoffs because they were given an opportunity to coach it up and figure it out and play it, and they did. And then if it is about the best teams, then you don't need any
Would
of the other
Florida
stuff.
Atlantic or San Diego State get in the college football playoff? So.
Yeah, I mean, the same rules. So, no. The best over most deserving, like, if we're looking for the 4 best teams, then why should the games matter then? And when do they stop mattering if you're looking for the best team?
Okay.
Like, that's it. Like, when does that point happen?
Because
this year they decided it was best eye test and not most deserving. Other years it's most deserving. Again, they just came to the conclusion they wanted to come to, and they justified it the way that they felt they needed to, and then they moved on, and they don't give a damn about any of the fans out there, man. They got what they wanted. They got the TV product they wanted. And you know what? Alabama, it's nothing against them. It's not their fault. They did their job. They won the SEC. They beat Georgia, which everybody's just kind of like moving past already. Like this juggernaut that was in line 2-3 games away from winning 3 straight national titles, and we're just like, oh, they got beat, but oh wait, yeah. I mean, the playoff has completely clouded that result. But I mean, it's just this year it was the best, and it was the eye test. Again, a very subjective thing by a bunch of people just sitting in a room, but they're all watching the game, so we should just trust their opinions on this.
Yeah.
No ulterior motives whatsoever.
Yeah. And number 1, your QB is out. All right, there's 21 other players, and I get it. Like, look, the team is different, but they found ways to win both times, and yes, it is harder, the degree of difficulty, if Florida State had to play Michigan as opposed to Louisville, who's pretty darn good all year long, or any of those other teams, is going to be raised. But if you're going to give figure skating style judging, because that's what they're doing here, if you're going to do that, then raise the degree of difficulty and put Florida State in, because look, it's going to be tougher to beat Michigan, but if you give them a month to figure it out, hell, maybe they might do it. Maybe they might do it.
Well,
but we'll never know.
We'll never know. Thank you, Paul. Are you back?